G'day guys, welcome to another workshop here at Carolina Family Spine Center. I'm Dr. Craig. It's great to see you all here again. We're here in March. Finally spring has arrived. So we're talking about March Mobility Month. There's a lot of fun things happening. You've got March Madness, the sun is shining, spring sports are beginning. It's time to get out and plant the garden. So there's a lot of exciting times to happen around here. With that being the fact, there's a lot of cool things that go on with your body as we regard to it. So tonight we're going to be talking about spring into wellness and what March Mobility Month is all about. So as we go through, we're talking about how your body can move, how your body can shape better, how it can coordinate better, and how chiropractic care can help. So let's get started. So spring has finally arrived. Cold and flu season is starting to drift away. The warmer weather is coming out, so that means more outdoor activities. Like I mentioned, spring sports, March Madness is beginning. Big Tar Heel fan, so I'm excited for that. It starts all over again. We have that warm weather coming through, so the gardens are blooming, the flowers are coming out, the insects are out there. Along with that comes the pollen. So there's a lot of exciting things that happen in the months of March as we spring forward. Now, along with that, we're talking tonight about balance and coordination, okay? That balance of starting again, okay? The biggest thing that we want to talk about tonight is balance and coordination and what that actually means and how your body can accept that as we go into this new beginning, all right? Springing into this wellness theme. So we want to talk about balance. Balance is the most single important factor in underlying movement, all right? Balanced movements are controlled, coordinated movements. I'll say it again. Balanced movements are involved in coordinated, controlled movements. Posture equilibrium is achieved when the body moves the center of mass in uniformity. That's a pretty weird little statement to make, all right? But I just want you to think about this. Postural equilibrium, so your posture, equilibrium, equal amounts, is achieved when the body moves the center of mass in uniformity. So if it's my body, the equilibrium or the equal balance of my posture or any postural coordinated movement needs to be moving in with the center of mass, i.e. the center of me, okay? When the center of gravity is swayed, we will fall unless adjustments are made with the body, okay? So we'll take that same premise that I just mentioned before. Postural equilibrium, so the equal amount of posture, all right, is achieved when the body is moved in the center of mass uniformity. So my body moves from center mass in a uniform state. If there is a change in gravity, if there is a sway, an earthquake, I get pushed over, the body will coordinate to keep that postural equilibrium, that equal amount of posture, intact. Now that's important, all right? Now think about that when it comes to new things in the spring, new sports, new activities, outdoors, all that sort of stuff. The body will reciprocate that to stop the sway, the fall, the bump, the bruise, the earthquake, all right, if you want to go the extreme measure. It will do that in regards to the external points of our body, which is the ankles, the hips, and stepping strategies, okay? So we'll take, for example, if I'm standing still like this, and all of a sudden someone comes and pushes me over, my body, the center mass has been moved off of that equilibrium. Would that be the case? My hips, my legs, my ankles, my knees will catch me, all right? It will make those postural adjustments. Someone comes and pushes me over just like this as I'm leaning through it, all right? The body weight here will take over onto my leg, allowing me to stabilize and keep that postural equilibrium or a roundabout such, okay? Keep that in mind as we go through this tonight. This is what happens when people get rolled ankles, sore joints, and at the end of the day, sometimes have to get knee replacements. The postural equilibrium of their body has been swayed so much that the external positional adjustments that our body has to make, the ankles, the knees, the hips, have become so inclined to doing it, they start to fail. All right? They start to fail because of the fact they've been overused and overworked. So those postural equilibriums that I mentioned before about how the body has to move around that center of gravity, of the center mass, it will have to change if there is a change in position. But if it's changed too many times and becomes common nature far too often, that's when wear and tear kicks in. And that's what happens with rolled ankles, sore joints, and knee replacements. All right. Instability in the joint themselves and poor biomechanics are ingrained within those three things because of that changing equilibrium all the time, the constant nature of it. The ankle becomes the primary shock absorber, and when that is compromised, the hips take over. And when that happens, finally, the lumbar spine takes over. So what happens is that the body is taken over and all these small little measurements, all right, these small little tweaks that are going to help you keep that equilibrium to allow your body to be in that perfect balance, However, over time, the body will create stability through infusion. All right? The body will start to infuse itself, lock up, and then that's when you start to have those problems. That's when you start to see those rolled ankles, sore knees, sore hips, sore joints, and all that sort of thing. So it's because of those postural adjustments that our body makes on a day-to-day basis, the wear and tear will kick in all the time, and after a while, a fusion will happen. All right? Inflammation happens, joint instability occurs, and a fusion happens where the body says, enough's enough, we're locking out. You're not going anywhere. So the body is smart. The body knows. So the body takes over and says, we ain't doing that no more. And so with that being the fact, that's when people come in and they say, I can't bend down, and I can't pick up that toy over there for my kid, or tie my shoelaces is really hard, because the body takes over and says, enough's enough, stop what we're doing, we ain't going anymore. The reason why neurologically that happens is something called proprioception. All right? Proprioception is your body's ability to notice things in space, to deal with things. All right? And proprioception happens in a rapid amount of time. We're talking instantaneous, all right? Milliseconds. That being the case, I'll give you an example, all right? Environmental interaction, you step down and you are bending over and you're going to tie your shoelaces, okay? That's your environmental interaction is changing. The body, through proprioceptors that are in the body, there's trillions of them, senses a change in movement. There is a determination factor of the body position. How do I bend down? How do I tie my shoelaces? How do I get to that next stage of coordinating all those muscles to get down into that position, to remember how to create the two bunny ears, loop it around, tuck it in the hole, and pull through? After that, the body makes a choice on what movement to make. From that, select muscle groups are then engaged, and that generates body movement. Now, neurologically, your body is doing this in milliseconds, all right? In tenths of milliseconds in order to make that motion occur with whatever you're doing. It could be you reaching down to grab a cup of coffee while still driving while coughing. Think about those three movements you're doing, and your body is doing all of that and more at the same time. So I go back to it. The body is smart. The body knows what it's doing. So when it comes to those proprioception and balance, the body's making trillions of decisions in rapid succession, knowing the fact that it's doing things to keep you in motion when it comes to your balance and coordination in that postural equilibrium. With that being the fact of all those things happening all the time, the brain-muscle connection is working, okay? That is the sense of stability, balance, and movement coordinated by a special system. And that special system is the sensory motor system, all right? And it's compartmentalized in three things. So the way the body changes its stability, balance, and movement is done through three ways. The visual system, which is about 10%, the vestibular system, which is your ears, all right? And the somatosensory system, which is your proprioception. 70% of your proprioceptors live in your joints and muscles. All right, so again, 70% of your proprioceptors, that's somatosensory, that changing nature of your body through that position, stability, balance, and movement, going through, as I said, that environmental interaction, sensitive change, determination of body position, choice of body movement, select muscle group pattern, and generate body movement. That is how your body is able to sense that stability, balance, and movement. And 70% of that live in those joints and muscles. So taking that brain-muscle connection that we just talked about, and then we put it in a position of what I mentioned, how the body, when it is getting that sway, all right, after repetitive motion, and after a while the body locks out in those special joints, that's when the fusion happens and lockout occurs. But if 70% of our proprioceptors are sitting in those joints and muscles, then that means that 70% of our body is not working properly when it comes to our stability, movement, and balance. If they've been affected, if they're locked out, they're saying no more, then that means the fact that 70% of our proprioceptive nature, our somatosensory nature, that it allows us to coordinate that balance, movement, and coordination, that means that they're not working. That's horrific, right? Now, you put it in the perspective of you bending over to tie your shoelace, yeah, it could be a pain. Put that into the 24/7, 365 nature of the day when you're doing all those tasks, that's huge. That allows you, or should I say, not allow you, to go outside and plant new flowers, or to start that new sport in the spring, or to do the repairs on the siding of your house, or allow you to go for a walk in the park with your loved one. You think about that, the fact that there's all these things that are occurring when it comes to your balance and coordination that is charged by your neurology, and it's affecting the external nature of those things that are supposed to be helping you with that sway and balance, but they're caused by a fusion because the body says no more. That being the case, the balance and the nervous system is so important, all right? As we age, the number of neurons decrease in our body, all right? There's a decline in the nerves and the nerve fibers. There's wear and tear, like I mentioned. There's slower nerve conduction, there's slower atrophy of the brain, and there's alterations in the gait. Now, it's important to continue to work on balance to improve neuron communication and communication, all right? And that's where chiropractic comes in, all right? And I always bring it back to chiropractic at the end of the day, but that's where it happens. It's important to continue to work on balance to improve neuron communication and coordination. Because without it, what have we got? When you want to stop the deceleration process, we want to keep our nerves happy and healthy so that you're able to deal with those balance and stability and movements that our body's going through. Not decline, not fall over, not have a fusion and lockout, which leads to those rolled ankles and stubborn knees and bad hips that might lead down the line to you having surgery, or it might lead down the line to having a replacement. So that's why it's so important that the balance and the nervous system are so entwined, when it comes down to it, because the neurology supports all the other things that are going on. The question that people always ask is, well, what would interrupt those proprioceptors? Well, the answer is subluxations, all right? If there's pressure or a misalignment at the vertebra, it can be affecting the response of the muscle or the joint. Proprioceptors can't change at that point, all right? And they can't change that quick environment. So I mentioned before about how it's that sense of environmental change that triggers everything else. Well, the environmental is changing every single second, millisecond, tenth of a millisecond. That being the case, can your body adapt to that? Now, if there's pressure on the nerve that's going towards that area, well, then the proprioceptor, which job is to react to that change of environment, is not occurring. And so with that being the case, the body is not going to function as its best. A fusion will kick in. No more. We ain't doing it. All right? That will cause other things to counteract, the body to take control and say, we're not going to let you put that much weight on that foot. All right? And so that can cause rolled ankles, hip pains, and long-term injuries, for instance, because it just says no more, we ain't doing it. So that simple take of how a misalignment can cause that interference to that nerve affects so much more than just your pain. It can lead to long-term injury, and it can cause you to have instability, balance, and coordination problems. Chiropractic and proprioceptors are key, all right? They increase and restore motion, furthering the joint's ability to perceive and send the information properly to the brain, all right? In turn, this allows the brain and the body to read and process outside information of the environment more effectively. So I go back to the example, okay? We're bending over, we're tying our shoelace, all right? We already mentioned the fact that if our proprioceptors aren't responding properly, all right, in certain areas, let's call it our hip, all right? And that's causing somatosensory changes within our environment, and we can't do that, there's a lockup. That's what people say, they throw their back out, all right? With that being the case, that means that your body is not effectively working properly because of subluxation, and the proprioceptor is not allowing you to change that environmental or respond to that environmental change. Ultimately, it helps the body function through chiropractic, whether it's on the sporting field, in a gym, or doing some exercises like walking in the park. So the chiropractic and proprioceptor connection is huge. We have to have proper connection between our proprioceptors and our nervous system so that things can help with the change of environment that we go through in rapid succession. Now, the problem today is the fact that most of the time our proprioceptors are being affected by our sympathetic nervous system being over-triggered. So I'll talk to you a lot about this, all right? The sympathetic nervous system is our stress response, all right? It's our go, 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 all right? Our sympathetic nervous system takes over, and what happens in a moment of fight or flight or a stress response is that our body says it's go time. So what do? We flush our body with adrenaline and cortisol, two very, very, very powerful hormones. They'll flush the system and say, let's go to their point of attack, let's get important things working, let's shut down the unimportant stuff, and let's get the heck out of here. The opposite of that is parasympathetic. That's your rest response, okay? Now, your rest response brings you back down to base level. Bringing you back down to base level is very important because you cannot be going all the time. If you go all the time, that means adrenaline and cortisol are kicked in your system for far too long, and research has shown that inflammation kicks in, all right? Muscle tissue breaks down, the body starts to really break down and attack itself at the end of the day because those powerful chemicals are in your system and they're attacking the thing that they think they're helping, but they're not. All right. Now, when that comes to your proprioceptors, if your sympathetic nervous system is firing all the time and proprioceptors live in muscles and joints, well, that means it's just being flushed. All right. It's just this constant fire hydrant experience, which is flushing it towards those proprioceptors. And that means the fact that they're going to say, all right, well, enough's enough. We're going to shut down. This chemical is too powerful for us. And so if that chemical is too powerful, that's when inflammation kicks in. All right? That's when muscle tissue breaks down. That's when an infusion or effusion comes in, where the body says, no more, we're locking it down. And then that stops you from being able to deal with the proprioceptive change of your body or the environmental change of your body that allows you to, as I said before, simply bend down and tie your shoelace or go for a walk in the park, or plant that thing outside for the spring. The problem today is that people are so stressed. Their stress response has kicked in so much that they cannot do anything about it. All right? They're always in that fight or flight mode. That stress response is just go, go, go all the time. Your body's under constant attack, so your rest and digest system can't kick in, and you're stuck in a stress state. All right? And that is just like living with your handbrake on all the time and your gas pedal flying down the road. You're trying to move. You're trying to do better. All right. People will try and eat well. They'll try and get their sleep in there. They'll try and drink plenty of water. All right. They're doing all the right things with the gas pedal. However, the brake pedal is just pulling back and saying you ain't going nowhere. When you're always in a state of defense mode or fight or flight, stress, 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 you cannot live in a state of health, healing, and adaptability. It just doesn't work. Your stress response is far too strong. It's far too powerful. It overtakes. So we want to try and get your parasympathetic or your rest response being more inclined to take over than your stress response. All right? So some questions to ask yourself. If you're in a stress state all the time, do you think mechanoreceptors or proprioceptors can work at their best? What happens if they're not working at their best and the nerve isn't properly firing? Could it cause long-term injuries if they're not responding well? And lastly, what if we could track and we can tell? All right. Simple answers are no, they can't. All right. They can't work in their best state if they're in a stress response all the time. If the muscle is not getting all the correct information to fire properly, injury can occur more frequent or longer. All right. Because of the fact that those proprioceptors aren't responding at their best potential because there's something impacting it. The stress response kicked in, the chemical gets released. The body says enough's enough. We're going to break down because this chemical is too powerful, too strong. The change in equilibrium and the system starts to move. The joint locks out. And all of a sudden, you've now got yourself a rolled ankle. Now, the cool thing in regards to the last question I asked is that yes, we can track it. That's what our subluxation station can do. We use something in our office called Insight EMG. All right. Now, this EMG measures the motor system of your nervous system. So it's the amount of energy it takes for your muscles to sit during the test, just to sit there, just to operate. Okay. And it shows you high fluctuations of muscles. It shows you low fluctuations of muscles, what we call hypertonic or hypotonic. Now, most people come in and they say, I've got a pain on the right-hand side of my shoulder, and it's going to highlight that there. All right. No lie to it. They've told me, the scan shows it, that's what's happening. However, this scan shows the stress response, that fight or flight, that stress response to your nervous system, versus your rest response. So this scan is going to show us how the balance of effect of the muscles on either side and how the mechanoreceptors are not firing. So it's going to show us, is that area, that right shoulder for instance, is that thing firing too much because the stress response has gone, yep, we're kicking in right there. There's a misalignment of the spine, putting pressure on the nerve. The proprioceptors or the mechanoreceptors do not fire properly because the sympathetic nervous system is fired too strong, too hard. And now someone who has mobility issues or coordinating issues on the right-hand side can't do anything about it because their body is not responding to their environmental change. You see how it all trickles down, all right? It's not just the fact that you rolled your ankle because you misstepped, all right? It all has to go back to neurological impact and what is happening with it. I've got an example for you just here, okay? I have a patient here. He's a 17-year-old young man, and he has lower back pain, okay? He's a bowler, all right? Goes 10-pin bowling, and he has balance and coordination issues due to the fact that he had a stroke at the age of 4, okay? Had weakness down his whole left side, all right? As you can see on screen just here, you can have a look and see where his scans lied him, okay? So as you can see, his temperature scan was pretty dang good, 93 when he first came in. However, the middle column just there is his muscle tone, his segmental EMG. As you can see, there is so much red sitting upstairs, all right? Now, upstairs just through here in the cervical spine is where your parasympathetic lies. That's your rest response. You can see that his rest response has just been worked too hard. There's fatigue, there's hypotonic muscle there. His body is not responding. So he cannot stop that chemical imbalance that's flushed in his system, causing balance and coordination issues because his sympathetic took over certain areas, flushed it in there. The proprioceptors said, nah, we ain't doing it, not happening. And with that being the case, his functionality of balance and coordination stopped. On the far left-hand side, you see his HRV. Now this is showing us where his body sits. Is it in a sympathetic state or a parasympathetic state? A stress state or a rest state? As you can see, the little white dot there represents him. He is in a sympathetic state and he has a score of 63. Now I want to show you something that happens after 6 weeks of care in our office. As you can see, his score has jumped to an 86 from a 63. All right, overall. His temperature scan went up to a 94. So great work. There's no temperature imbalances with it. However, his muscle tone score went from a 34 to an 83. That's huge. We've doubled the answer. As you can see, those red bars have decreased. There's a couple of blues and a green in there. So as we go forward, we're looking to try and take them away as we go through his scans, as we go over the course of time and throughout his treatment plan. The cool thing about it as well is on the far left-hand side, we're looking at, is he in a stress state or a rest state? He has completely flipped that little white dot from one side to the other. He was in a sympathetic tone on the left-hand side when he came in, where his body was just kicking in that adrenaline, that cortisol, that go, go, go nature all the time. And on that day, we were able to rescan him, and he is now in that parasympathetic state, taking a score from a 63 to an 82. That's huge. For a young boy going through every emotion under the sun when it comes to school and life and everything else, all the guy wants to do is just bowl properly, all right, get his scores up, have a good time. His balance and coordination issues have started to decrease, allowing his body to thrive better because his neurological system is more in balance. And that's huge, allowing a 17-year-old boy who's gone through hell and back from the age he was 4 to allow him to have the best life and the most optimum lifestyle that he can have. All that's to say, guys, that we want to activate your power here at Carolina Family Spine Center. All right? You can go a month without food, you can go days without water, you can go minutes without air, but you can't go 1 second without nerve supply. Allowing your body to deal with the environmental changes that happen, make the correct motions and establishment of balance and coordination allows you not only to thrive in lifestyle, but also to stop yourself from having injuries and long-term problems such as rolled ankles, knee pain, hip replacements, all that sort of stuff. Getting the right information to your proprioceptors, allowing you the best ability to thrive, to stop that stress response from kicking in all the time, flushing it with adrenaline and cortisol and breaking down those areas and saying we ain't going nowhere like the body wants to. Getting your body in the right mindset, neurologically, allows you to jump into spring, all right, beginning our March Mobility Month, and allow your body the best chance it can have to have the most thriving opportunity into the spring. Thank you all for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to many more great workshops with you guys here at Carolina Family Spine Center. Please check out our website, cfspine.com, and on YouTube, you can just search cfspine.com. You'll find all of our workshops, a bunch of videos and patient testimonials. Look forward to seeing you guys next month. Cheers.